says, welcome Ryan Parker.
That's me, buddy.
The name's right?
All right, good morning and welcome to the Economic Standing Policy Committee for Tuesday, October 3rd. And thank you to my colleagues. This is, has been moved up a little bit as we deal with a couple presentations and an in-camera item. So first, Madam City Clerk, if we can have a roll call.
Sure, thanks, Mayor Higgin. Councillor Carlson. Oh, that's you? Yes, you do.
Present.
Councillor Crowson.
Could be a lot. I too am here.
Councillor Dodick. Present. Councillor Palladino.
Present.
Councillor Parker. Here. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Here. Acting Mayor Middleton Hope.
Present.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Campbell.
Present.
And Mayor Higgin.
Present.
Thank you.
All right. And we'll start with the acknowledgement statement. The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we're gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people past, present, and future while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationships to the land. The City of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. I have a resolution from Councillor Crowson, adoption of agenda. Be it resolved that October 3rd, 2023 agenda of the Economic Standing Policy Committee meeting be adopted as presented. Are any additions or deletions, Madam City Clerk?
There is not for this meeting. Thank you, Mayor Higgin.
All right, Councillor Crowson? Question. Question's been called. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. I have a resolution from Councillor Dodick, consent agenda. Be it resolved that the minutes of the Economic Standing Policy Committee meeting held on September 19th, 2023 be approved and the Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to sign the same. Further be resolved that the status of the initiatives for October 3rd, 2023 be received as information. Councillor Dodick?
Call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. I have a resolution from Councillor Carlson to enter closed session. Be resolved that we do now enter closed meeting at 10:36 to discuss confidential matters with respect to section 7.1, to item 7.1 as section 16, business interests of a third party, 21, harmful intergovernmental relations, and Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, which you'll see later. 7.1 is on the public agenda as AHS contract ratification, verbal. So with that, a motion to...
Call for the vote.
Question's been called. All in favor? Okay, we are now enclosed and we'll be back. All right, welcome back to our Economic Standing Policy Committee, and thanks everyone for their patience that are in the gallery. We'll continue on with a motion from Councillor Carlson. Be it resolved that we now adjourn the closed meeting at 11:17. Councillor Carlson, all in favor? So passes. And a resolution from Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, HS contract update. Be it resolved, the Economic Standing Policy Committee recommend that Council direct that administration proceed with the confidential recommendation provided in closed session, and the closed meeting discussions with respect to HS contract update remain confidential pursuant to Section 16, Business Interests of a Third Party, and 24, Advice from Officials of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
I will call for the vote.
Question's been called. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. All right. And these are just submissions, no presentations.
Right. We should ask council if they have questions.
All right. My colleagues here on the submission, there's no presentations on the next two, but I'm sure, well, I know I have received questions, et cetera. And so I just, throughout last week, and since this was posted, so I want to give council the opportunity, if there's any questions on 6.1 is what we will start off with, which is regarding the Affordable and Social Housing Capital Fund request from Streets Alive mission. And so I want to know if anybody has any questions, and I'll start off with those. Councillor Dodick.
Excuse me. I'm trying to figure out, someone can answer this question for me, is that this has become an urgent business item, even though I noticed that the offer to purchase the property in question was actually signed in June of this year. So why is it coming to us so late?
Thank you very much for the question. So these items are being brought forward as urgent items related to the timeline with the provincial AHPP program. So there was work being done by the applicant before this came onto city administration's radar. It was when we became aware of the AHPP program and the pending deadline for applications of October 16th that we then began the process of getting these items in front of SPC and eventually council. So the timeline is related to that deadline as opposed to something that they may have started. Any specific questions on the purchase price, the purchase can be directed to the applicants who are here today.
So when did the administration get notice that this was happening? So we get this information now. I appreciate the October 16, 2023 deadline, but we were asked to fund or use taxpayer money of $850,000 to fund this. So when did administration get wind that this application or this request for money was actually going to go before City Council?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to call up Mr. Pitcher, who's our Housing Solutions Coordinator, to speak through some of the timeline.
Thank you for the question. So in response to that, on July 24th, the Government of Alberta announced the Affordable Housing Partnership Program, AHPP, as Mr. Malcolm mentioned. At that point in time, when we realized that that funding opportunity was available, we put out a call out to potential applicants of that program, because there is a eligibility criteria within that program that details other sources of funding, specifically mentioning private donation or municipal governments. So we reached out to a total of 17 different groups, had responses from, I believe, 6 of those groups that were working on projects that may fit that scope. And then from there, these are the 2 that are coming forward to council for the funding allocation request. So the actual announcement was on July 24th, a couple weeks of call out time and then preparation for the submission to council.
What steps has administration taken to at least determine whether or not this particular applicant can provide the supportive housing, which is the basis of this application?
So this is actually, for Streets Alive in particular, this one is actually an extension of their Exodus program, which I would actually invite probably the applicant to share more about that program, but it is a program that is existing, and this would be an expansion of the program spaces moving forward.
I'll ask a final question then and get out of the queue, but I have additional questions after that. We're given an address. Do we have a map or anything that shows where exactly this property is?
You can't see, oh,
No, that's the second one.
no. First one is west of the hospital and south of 9th.
Okay, I'll get out of the queue for the time being.
Thank you. And I'll just add, if I could, to the question that's already been asked. So we had a July 24th, this was announced. And at the announcement date, we knew that the deadline was October, correct?
Correct. It was announced July 24th with an
Okay.
October 16th
So,
deadline.
so we told these individuals that you'd reached out to that there's a deadline for October. Why was it the week before that they decided to finally put something in and have us do an emergency meeting? Or an emergency meeting, or change our meeting?
So the reasoning, we were not able to get the submissions prepared in time for a September meeting, no meetings in the summer. And then the actual timeline for the October standard SPC and City Council, just with the delay from the SPC to the council deadline, the resolution would have come in after the deadline by several days.
Because with us trying to be as transparent as possible is what council should be at all times, obviously, this is given minimal time for community to have any engagement whatsoever on something that they're going to be paying almost $1 million for on this particular one, and we'll talk the other one after.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge that we have with administration, with the timelines being provided by different funding programs. Something that we've been quite vocal about at our level, administrative level, is that previously, going back a number of years, we were quite successful in Lethbridge with municipal block funding, where the governments gave a pile of money, whatever that amount was, to the municipality to help leverage and create into housing units. What we've seen of late is more of a competition base, where we have an announcement, there's a competitive process, and municipalities are in a position of trying to support applicants with their applications, of which many of those applications ask for a municipal contribution to be part of it. What we were forced with is between July 24th and today, with putting out a call, working with applicants, vetting to see whether or not administration would put forward a recommendation of supporting, and then working with those applicants to ensure that they have a project that met the provincial, in this case, provincial requirements, and then getting a submission in. So it's been really tight, and up until probably, well, the submission date, we weren't even sure whether these two projects were in fact eligible with all aspects of the province. We submitted in advance of that because we knew we had to get it into the process, and we actually just got confirmation on one of the projects from the Government of Alberta last Thursday. So if we track it all back, there's a number of instances as to why this has been rushed, so to speak. It is a challenge with the current setup with these competition-based funding programs.
The information, did you receive from these applicants just last week, or was it administration's time to deal with it? So when did you get all the information you needed from the applicants?
So if we put out a call from July 24th for 2 weeks to get interested applicants. So we
they
were
had
sitting in the middle of
applied
August.
In the beginning of August, you had the information from the applicants?
We're started to get information. Now, we had to work with applicants to refine the information to make sure it fit with what administration was comfortable bringing forward, as well as we had to work with the Government of Alberta to ensure eligibility requirements with their program. So it required quite a bit of back and forth between administration, the applicant, and the Government of Alberta, which is why the timeline is the way it is.
All right, I have further questions, but I'll hop out for now. And next, Councillor Crowson.
Thank you, Mayor Hagan. One quick process question, though. This is an SPC, and do you want us to ask our questions before seeing if any members of the public have any questions?
Actually, we should, that's a very good point. We could have members of the public first come up and do a presentation, then we can ask questions for all. So thank you very much, Councillor Croson. Great idea. I was going to ask them after, but it would be better to have everybody speak before questions, so thank you. So, are there any members of the public that would like to make a presentation on this item? For a second time, is there any members of the public that would like to make a presentation on this item? And for a third and final time, are there any members of the public which wish to make a presentation on this item? Seeing none, we will move along with it. But thank you very much, Councillor Croson. And was that your question?
Was it my
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so I do have several questions. I do want to just, like my colleagues, I'll make the comment quickly. I am a little bit surprised by how quickly this has been forward, but we also know we're in a housing crisis, and we've been asked by the provincial government and other orders of government to be nimble. So maybe this is our chance to show that we can be nimble and transparent at the same time. So that might be an option. But I do have questions for the applicant if they are here. Perfect. Hello.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Jennifer Lepko. I'm the Chief Development Officer with Streets Life Mission.
So the first thing is, how is your relationship with the community where you have housing already? Do you have a neighborhood plan? How do you work within neighborhoods if this moves ahead?
So we have been in this location already for 4 years and have great relationships within the community. There is no specific neighborhood plan in place right now, as we are just renters of the facility or the building. But we have already actually sent out some letters to 200 meters out, letting them know that we are moving forward. This is kind of what's happening, and we will have some planned engagement early 2024. We'd love to be able to have it in like November, but the reality is we want it to be open and again transparent so that they have the opportunity and we're not, infringing on people's holidays.
So if this does move ahead, you're looking from going from renters to purchasers, would anybody be kicked out of this housing if you move ahead? Because, it's always great to have new housing, but I don't want to see anybody else moved out. So how would that be, how would you deal with that?
No, so there will be nobody that is kicked out unless they breach some of the rules. So one of them is the fact is if they drink or use substances of any sort. So then they would be removed. But other than that, no one will be pushed. That's something that we're very cognizant of, is we don't want to make sure that we're adding to the houselessness of people in our community.
And last question, if this was approved, if you got the money, or even if you don't get the money but you go ahead, will you be looking for any ongoing operational funding from the city, or do you have your own money to run this?
We have our own money to run this. So we are predominantly community funded as an organization and have been for 33 years in the community, and we've never had an issue with the ongoing operation dollars.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Higgin.
Looks like I'm currently
Acting
speaking.
Mayor, you're
There we go.
next.
So two questions. One to the proponent. In regards to, you can come back up again? Thank you. And this is actually a question that Mr. Harvey is going to also be posed with. A piece of this is, there are two additional pieces that two sources that funding comes from. The piece that I'm interested in is your commitment to sponsorship, managing debt, being able to bring on additional resources from an unspecified location. So we've got debt, donations, sponsorship, those kinds of things. What assurances do we have as a council that you're going to be able to meet those obligations? In this particular case, in option number one, I think you're looking at $1.59 million that you've committed to acquiring from sponsorship, donations, and debt. So how does that look? How can you reassure council that you're going to be able to meet that obligation?
Right now we have significant dollars pledged that are not officially public yet, but we have approximately $1.5 million in our large campaign that is pledged, again, not confirmed. We have begun an actual capital campaign in terms of having some conversations with some of our larger consistent donors. So this will go on, and it just will take a lot longer probably if we are unable to access some of the funding through the province and through our city to help support something like that. But we actually have those dollars. I think we've shown in the past, again, being able to be in business and the growth that we've seen and maintained over the past 33 years has shown that we do have a very strong donor base that is consistent.
Okay, so suffice to say then, irrespective of the decision, and I think my colleague asked this question, irrespective of the decision by council, you're moving ahead with this project regardless of whether you receive funding from us or not.
Correct. Again, the issue is we're in a housing crisis and we need additional housing as soon as we can get it. And this will absolutely prolong the amount of time it takes to actually add on and increase the number of beds available.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Malcolm, you've talked about this as a competitive process. What does that look like?
I think in terms of a competitive process with this one is that we reached out to our nearly 20 different housing providers at the start, all inquiring as to where they were at and whether they had projects that would fit, at least in their mind, to start with this opportunity and whether they'd like to engage with us further in getting to the point we're at today. As Mr. Pitcher alluded to, we had 6 respondents initially to that call, and as we worked through those details, we have basically been able to weed out 4 that maybe weren't a great fit, and 2 are here for your consideration that are in alignment.
So just a question in regards to that. Perhaps you can enlighten me here. The other organizations that went through the process and so forth, what were the stumbling blocks? Why didn't they succeed? Why don't you have, instead of 2 people, why don't you have 6 groups as an example? Is there something that we're not doing to facilitate that, or is it just a lack of understanding of the process? Maybe they don't have the resources. What's the reason for it?
It's a pretty big question to ask as our answer. There are many factors. So if we go back and we've made or brought attention to a number of these things over the last couple of years. Usually zoning is a requirement before you can bring forward something. In this case, it isn't. But what you need to have is you need to have an organization who actually already has plans in process. They've been looking at a property, they've been developed, because between July 24th and now, it's a rapid process to try to get your financials and your budgets together. The other thing is that we need to have an understanding of groups need to have some base funding. They need to make a commitment that they've done designs, they've done that pre-work in place already, and we just simply don't have those organizations in our community right now. They're often looking for some financial assistance at the pre-development stages so that they can actually plan and build those business cases in advance. So what we typically see, again, with 6 respondents with interest, is that there's probably a good chance that there were 6 potential projects. Once you actually learn more about the specific program from the province, in this one, it did filter out a few more. Each of these competitions, whether it's from the federal government or the provincial government, have different focused areas that they're looking at, which is, again, another piece of that just of effort and review. Going back to one of my initial statements, there was a time where they gave basically block or lump funding to a municipality and let them be more hands-on with the distribution, and we've gone away with that. And so each of these competitions just require a deeper understanding of what that specific call is for, and it's different each time.
So can I characterize our process as being inclusive or exclusive?
Our process ourselves? I would say,
because it sounds like we're looking to exclude people from the process, and I want to be satisfied that we're actually providing an inclusive process, which means we're actually working with these groups to try and get them, keep them in the process so that there is more competition.
I would say that the City of Lethbridge's process is inclusive in nature. We are reaching out to all providers that we know on the front end, at least from when we become aware of the project, and we're assisting them all through to the point where they indicate that they're dropping or stepping back. I'd say the overall process is not terribly inclusive. And that's all three levels of government working together and trying to, obviously get to the outcome that we all want, which is more units.
Okay. And we're working towards trying to create a more inclusive process?
I think so. I think that's in alignment with the federal housing mandate, as well as some of the efforts that the province has put in place. Again, just part of the reality is with a competition basis, is each competition has a very specific outcome they're looking for, and we have to go and find or help applicants find those projects that fit the exact mold that they're looking for at that time.
I'm encouraged by your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Midland Hope. Next, we have Councilor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Malcolm, probably. Two questions, and these would probably be for both of the submissions, because I found similar questions for them both. So the first question is what are the agreements, or how do we have certainty that if this funding does go forward and these improvements are made, that these units will remain affordable or supportive ongoing? That's the first question. Second question is in the funding amounts. We've had several of these in front of us before. I notice administration is recommending we approve the full ask rather than the traditional percentage we usually commit to. So those are the two questions: is why are we, is administration asking for the full ask? Is it to make them more attractive to the province? Or is, and the other one is, how do we have certainty that these will remain affordable or supportive ongoing?
Thank you for the questions. I'm going to defer both to Mr. Pitcher.
Okay, thank you.
So following up on kind of what you mentioned, we have had several similar asks that have come before council within the last year. And following some of those approvals, those resolutions, we've actually developed in partnership with legal services as well as finance, a grant agreement for the Affordable and Social Housing Capital Grant, which is very similar in nature to what this request would be. And it actually includes a 20-year term where affordability is required. And it is based on the core net income thresholds from the government of Alberta, which is what we use to actually evaluate affordability in the first place at the time of application. That figure is updated on an annual basis by the government of Alberta. And further to that, we actually require annual reporting to ensure that continuity, and then there's safeguards in place if that doesn't occur or if the property is disposed before that time. And then in response to your second question, the reason that we're recommending the requested amount of the applicants, so in the case of Streets Live Mission, $850,000 for the purchase, renovation, retrofit, expansion. The reason that we're requesting the full amount of that ask is because, number one, that is the amount that was indicated by the applicant is what they would need to be able to confidently proceed, given that AHPP funding will only fund up to 1/3 of a project. Other programs that have come forward in the past have not always been under those same constraints of a 1/3 amount from another level of government. Some programs will offer quite a bit more, some will offer less. And so in that case, we've recommended the $850,000 because if we were to go to a lower amount, then the potential viability of a project may be at risk because there would be a need to secure additional funding from another source that could not necessarily be HPP above and beyond that 1/3 amount.
Okay, and both answers holds true for the second
Correct.
presentations or submission as well? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So I just wanted, before I go to the next question, confirm what I'd heard earlier, and either from Mr. Malcolm or yourself. It's my understanding, so June 23rd is when the offer to purchase came out. They did put it in the offer to purchase Streets Alive Mission, and then June 24th is HPP grant came out, right?
July 24th was the HPP announcement.
Okay, so in June 23rd was, okay, so a month after. So this was moving, I think I'd heard from Ms. Lepko that this was moving forward anyways.
Yeah, this
Okay,
this
that's good
project
enough.
was occurring before, yes.
Thank you. Next we have Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you to either Mr. Malcolm, Mr. Pitcher, or the applicant. So all of this is dependent upon rezoning, permit process, and fees. When would the public hearing for this rezoning be scheduled?
I'm going to defer that one to the applicant because I know they have started that process with our planning and design team, initiate conversations.
So we have received all the information required for the notification to the neighborhood, and we have not set an official date, but we are looking at into February of 2024. Reason being, again, just through the holidays to make sure that there's full access to all of the community and to set up a really good community engagement sessions.
So can you walk me through what that community engagement session is going to look like?
It'll be providing all of the information. We're looking at having multiple sessions so that we can provide the opportunity for people to come at different times of the day, knowing that people have different schedules. So there'll be multiple times where they can come. We will have all the information in regards to the entire project, what Exodus looks like historically, where we plan on going, the increased number of beds, the plans as have been submitted, and what the actual communication plan moving forward would look like.
Okay. And then just sort of looking at the overarching plan that you've got in there, on page 35, you outline the different stages. What stage would this space be at? What stage of services?
This is, so stage 2.
Stage 2? And then just a question, and I'm not sure who to address this one to. Is this property, because it is being operated by Streets Alive, having them operate the service, is this property currently tax exempt?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, and that would continue then to be tax exempt under your purchase?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Dodek.
Yes, Mr. Malcolm, in the material it says that the Affordable and Social Housing Capital Grant is closed until a comprehensive review has been completed. What does that mean?
Thanks for the question. So when we brought forward the Housing Accelerator Fund information, part of that resolution that Council ultimately supported was to put pause on our Affordable and Social Capital Grant. And that was due to the fact that we expected, if successful with the Housing Accelerator Fund, to have a bunch of access to capital dollars. And we wanted to make sure that the capital dollars already committed by council and those capital dollars were best leveraged to impact in our community. And so we've been reviewing that policy, again, in hopes of that announcement coming. And so we haven't been accepting applications through the regular process. Since that time, with both the federal rapid housing projects that we brought forward, there were 3 of them, and these 2, we felt it best to bring forward opportunities that are definitely leveraging other grants for ultimate impact in our community. One thing that we are currently looking at with our existing or paused Affordable Social Capital Grant is the fact that there is no requirement for matching funds for other levels of government. And so in theory, and what we've seen so far is groups coming forward only asking for funds through the city's capital dollars. And we feel like there's a better way to leverage that for overall impact in our community.
But was it a council resolution that had indicated it to be closed until this comprehensive review has been completed?
That is correct. And that's why we've brought these applications outside of the regular capital process.
All right. So in fact, what we're doing is basically going outside the resolution because you feel that because this Affordable Housing Partnership Program came into existence, that we should ignore that resolution and say, hey, we might have a chance to get some provincial dollars, so let's do it. Is that why this is being brought forward?
I wouldn't use those exact words, but that is the intent, yes.
Yeah. I see it refers to affordable housing, or 30% as being affordable, and then it says this project is intended to be supportive housing. Are the terms interchangeable? I thought supportive housing was something more than just providing housing for people who can't afford it, but supportive seems to be something different. Is that not correct?
So yes, there are many different definitions, whether that's from a programming perspective or a more formal land use perspective. In alignment with the AHPP program and our grant process, affordable and social are used interchangeably from the funding perspective. The operational side is where the zoning question comes in, and that's why they would have to go through that aspect, which is why we've tried to distinct those two processes as separate.
And even though the provincial program has a deadline of October 16 of 2023, we don't know at this point in time if they're going to have additional programs that would address additional funding opportunities. It's just that at this point, this particular program, the deadline is October 16, 2023. Is that right?
That is correct. We are been made aware that there will be more programs from both the federal and the provincial levels. We just don't know exactly what their eligibility criteria will be and when.
Okay, so if we were not to approve this today, there's a chance that further provincial and federal grants might become available that the applicant that is before us at this particular application could potentially access.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dodick. Councillor Crowson.
Respectfully, I've already asked some questions. If you want to jump to Councillor Campbell, I would be fine with that because he hasn't asked any.
Councillor Campbell.
Oh, thank you. Kind of just in the scope of, in the past, we've tried to get funding for various projects, and sometimes there's been some failures. And I'm just wondering the mindset of you and people that are trying to provide housing, when it gets turned down, what kind of, how dire is that for people who say, I wanted to get into affordable housing, but it's such a process and chances are I'm not going to get turned down. So, how dire is it for us to accept, to go ahead with this? If you get where I'm going, because it seems to be, it can be a difficult process, and I wonder if governments, provincial or federal, look to seeing how difficult it is and whether or not that adds to whether or not we get funding or not, and also for developers, how difficult is it for them to go forward in a positive manner?
So I think the federal government, the provincial government, and municipal governments have all acknowledged that this situation is fairly dire. There are lots of individuals in our community and across the country that are unable to get affordable housing or supportive housing. I think that's well acknowledged. For Lethbridge, I think our challenge has been there are a whole bunch of things that need to line up to make a successful application. And while we have got a lot of traction and have been making headway, to still get all those things to line up for a perfect application in a competitive environment is challenging. That's why we're bringing these opportunities forward, because we don't want to leave them not being reviewed and not being at least having a chance. So that's kind of how we've approached it. We're still hopeful that we've made a lot of progressive change. There's more coming with our land use bylaw project, the Housing Accelerator Fund application, which we're always still fingers crossed on. But it takes time, and these application processes, these competitions, as I like to put it, are, again, each one is catered to a specific outcome. They're not just, we want housing. They want either Indigenous housing, they want recovery housing, they want whatever it is. And so we have to work with applicants, because we ourselves don't build our own housing, to bring forward those. And so we're in the middle as a bit of a strategic helper, if you will. But at the end of the day, we're still trying to line up a whole bunch of different things that have to just land perfectly. So it is competitive, it is dire. I think all levels of government have acknowledged it, and we're just trying to bring forward as many opportunities as possible for the community.
I wonder, would one of the developers want to weigh in on the process that they've gone through and what it's been like for them, or if you want to speak? If not, that's fine. I'm just looking at what some of your stumbling blocks are, as you go forward.
Yeah, so again, timelines are really significant when you have an opportunity to make a purchase or put an offer in, looking for some bridge financing sometimes in order to make this work, but not being able to maintain a long-term mortgage payment. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges for a number of organizations is to have everything align effectively. And then you walk into some of the community issues too, is people don't understand. So when we say, for example, at Streets Alive Mission, we're putting in some affordable housing, recovery housing, people hear Streets Alive Mission and are worried that we're going to bring a bunch of issues to the neighborhood. Whereas, we've been there 4 years with 0 issues, and they don't understand necessarily what the actual program is about. And so you end up with a lot of people not wanting the people in their neighborhood that are requiring some of these housing options. And it becomes a bit of a stumbling block in that manner. And to some degree, we've got to start making some of those moves towards adding more homes so that we can get more of those people off of the street. And that'll help with some of the current issues.
Do you feel that you're getting the necessary support moving forward?
It feels like it, hopefully so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, right now we've been in a situation where things have had to move very, very quickly. The opportunity to purchase the eightplex that we are in came up, and we saw this as a great opportunity again to increase the number of beds for people that we can serve. And so it's been very quick, and we're doing our best to keep up with the pace of it and try to meet all the timelines necessary. But so far it seems really good, and administration has been a great support in helping us make sure that we have what we need to them in a timely manner.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Crowson.
Thank you, Mayor Higgin. So to administration, when we hear back from funders as to why we weren't successful, what is the major reason we're hearing back? What are we doing that, because we've worked with other groups, we've applied to a lot. What's the major reason we're hearing that Lethbridge in general isn't successful?
So with every competition and process we enter into, we ask for a debrief after. At this point in time, we're doing a lot right. It comes down, I think, primarily to zoning overall and just a very competitive environment. So whether that's just dollars and cents, operational dollar commitment, the ability to have zoned land already in place, do you have your permits? It's just a host of different things. I think the reality is just how competitive the overall environment is, and getting every single thing lined up on an application is just incredibly hard. We've seen larger centers in particular be able to do that. They have organizations in their community that have more access to operational dollars. They have operational dollars in place when they're making their application for capital funding. They got zoning in place. They have city municipal land as the land that they're building on. There's a whole host of things, but at the end of the day, it just comes down to how incredibly competitive the overall environment is.
Having said all that, it's complicated, having city municipal money on the table, does that increase our competitiveness?
I think across the board with federal and provincial dollars, it's always outlined in their application pamphlets or packages as advantageous. And I do know that in every conversation we've had, it's something that they're looking for.
Okay. And just to remind us, I know we've got this on hiatus right now and be a decision of council whether to break that hiatus. How much money is in the fund? And are there anything else in the pipeline that you know of beyond these two?
So right now, I believe we have 5.9 million being held right now in capital for the city. A lot of that was money previously allocated to those 3 rapid housing projects. So when they didn't come to fruition, the money was put back. In terms of coming up in the pipeline, we're aware of other projects that are going through different phases in the community. And again, they will have their day when there's a program that aligns, or they come separately with an ask. The other piece that I think we're really, again, I've made mention of it, is the Housing Accelerator Fund from the federal government. Our application was submitted, and we're expecting to hear by the end of the year. We expect, if successful, we'd do about $6.5 million. Approximately $2 million of that would be to actually do the implementation of the initiatives we outlined, and $4.5 of that would be available for capital infusion and to facilitate and make projects happen. So again, we feel like there's going to be some more money coming, hopefully, if we're successful. But that's kind of the financial situation we're in right now.
And last question, we did put this program on hold. If I remember correctly, it was administration who brought forward the idea to hold it. And now you're saying maybe we jumped the gun and we should have said, wait on the holding? Is this where we're kind of standing?
So it was administration that brought forward the recommendation, but I think it was the right thing to do, even though we've brought some projects outside of that process, because without it being held, we would have been in the process of bringing forward just every person's idea. And most of those asks, before we put it on hold, were asking for the municipal government to be the only government funder. Since putting it on hold, all projects that administration have brought forward is an attempt to leverage federal and provincial dollars, if successful, ultimately making our municipal dollar go further. So we feel it's the right strategy, and if we bring or unfreeze or bring forward that program, that's probably the direction we're leaning to, is to say that, you know, use our dollars when we can be used to leverage other dollars, as opposed to just being open.
So you're saying this has been well thought through and you wouldn't be here otherwise?
We think so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Higgin.
Acting Mayor Middleton.
Thank you. Mr. Malcolm, I would like some assurance here. We're incredibly concerned in terms of a housing piece about winter shelters, sober shelters, dry shelters. The $5.9 million that we're talking about here that the city has set aside for social and affordable housing, can you assure us that this is not the pot of money that we're going after in terms of winter housing or winter sheltering, sober or dry sheltering? This is a different pot of money altogether.
So this pot of money was approved in the CIP for affordable and supportive housing. And that's how our policy was written. That's how we've been treating that funding to date. Shelter being a different piece of the housing continuum entirely. The funding that we are actively working with the government of Alberta on for winter spaces for shelter is entirely separate.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I see no further questions in the queue. So with that, I'll read the resolution and go to debate. From Councillor Palladino, Affordable and Social Housing Capital Funding Request for Streets Alive Mission. Be it resolved that the Economic Standing Policy Committee recommend the City Council provide $850,000 of funding to the Streets Alive Mission for the supportive recovery housing project located at 925 15th Street South, conditional to the securement of balance of project funding on or before December 31st, 2024, and the successful acquisition of a development permit for the project. And providing the, number two, providing the funding subject to the execution of city managers, a city's third-party contribution agreement in a form with terms and conditions satisfactory to the city manager, and authorize the city manager and city clerk to sign the agreement. And number four, forward this report as an item of urgent business to this afternoon's October 3rd, 2023 council meeting due to tight timelines. Councillor Palladino to open. Oh, Councillor Carlson, you got...
Thank you, Your Worship. If just as a suggestion, or I'll propose an amendment if I can. See what Councillor.
Can we let him speak? We'll
Yes.
let him speak first to it, if we could.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is that working? Yeah. Okay. This recommendation, option one, is to allocate $850,000, representing the city's contribution towards the purchase and renovation of 925 15th Street South. This will leverage the balance of the funding, roughly $2.15 million from the province and private donors. The supportive recovery house project consists of 8 two-bedroom units and 16 one-bedroom units in a communal setting. As you can tell, there is some urgency to this request, in that there is a deadline of October 16th to apply for the provincial contribution. And as mentioned, all of this will be the subject of a separate public hearing and part of the rezoning process. The province wants to see the city have some skin in the game. So to get the ball rolling, I would like to see this move to this afternoon's agenda as urgent business item for City Council to deal with.
And now, Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm not sure if right now or if this proceeds to council is the place for this. I would like to make an amendment to the dollar amount, and I referenced this earlier. What administration has provided in option 2 shows sort of parity or equality to other groups who have come forward to access these funding dollars from the city. And so if we could perhaps, I'll put the amendment in there, I'm not sure if it's friendly or if it can go to a vote, but allocate, instead of the 850, allocate 560,000 towards this project, just to keep it in line with what we've done for other groups that have been successful in the past.
I have no problem with that amendment.
So it'd be a
So it'd be
friendly, so
option
it'd be
two.
changed to 560 on the first line?
Right, option 2.
All right.
Thank you.
And Councillor Dodek, to speak to as friendly amended.
It's already accepted.
Oh, it's already accepted, so speaking to the resolution as is.
I wouldn't have supported the 850. I'm not going to support the 560,000 ask either, and I'll give you the reasons for that. Nimble, to me, doesn't mean to support a project that will be proceeding irrespective of municipal funding, and that was acknowledged by the applicant. And if you want hard evidence on that, that's the fact that the purchase agreement was signed June 23rd of this year, and then the provincial money became available in July, and that's when, after that, that the application process started. So another thing that bothers me, that we as council passed a resolution to close this particular granting program until a comprehensive review has been completed. But it seems that we keep getting these ad hoc projects, even though we had a good reason for asking for a comprehensive review. So to me, it doesn't make any sense having that resolution in place if we keep approving projects like this. So also you have to understand that if the project is going ahead, irrespective of the $560,000 now being requested, and this resolution doesn't pass, that in effect means that there will be available an extra $560,000 to deal with potential affordable or supportive or a combination of affordable supportive housing asks in the future. So I would ask the council not support this particular resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Dodek. Next in line, Councillor Croson.
Thank you, Mayor Higgin. I will be in support of this. I love process. I'd love to have all of our ducks in a row. I love perfect solutions, but sometimes a crisis doesn't play by our timeline. And when they said that this will go ahead irrespective of municipal funding, the second part of that, it will take a lot longer. And there's no guarantee how long it will take before we get this additional housing. We know that we have been asked by the province to be more nimble, to be problem solvers, to find housing. This crisis is affecting whether people can get jobs. This is affecting our economic development. This is affecting schools. This is affecting everyone. We have students driving daily from Calgary because of lack of housing in Lethbridge. And while this will not provide specifically that type of housing, any housing we have increases in housing stock overall and makes the problem easier and easier to deal with. We know that we have a large number of unhoused people. This is an underutilized building. They are already operating from here. They're already working in that neighborhood. This is just a way to take this property and make it much better and to provide more housing on that site. So I hope my colleagues will support this, because we're not going to be able to get provincial funding, as was said, unless we're able to show that we are willing to be a partner in solving this crisis.
Thank you, Councillor Croson. Councillor Middleton-Hope.
Thank you. This is to begin with, is a process question. If this motion fails, Madam Clerk, do we put the 850 back on the table?
If this motion fails, it's lost, and you can put an alternate motion. So you could put 850 as an alternate motion.
Okay. From a debate perspective, I want to believe that our administration is doing absolutely the best that they can at every corner to support this community. And I believe that with every bone in my body. And so for that reason, when I see administration coming forward with a plan like this, that they're highly invested in, that they've done adequate research on, I'm supportive of it because I think it's important that we rely on those in our community that are the leaders. And our administration is a leader in terms of the way in which we do things around City Hall. So thank you very much for the hard work that you've done, and I appreciate it. And for those reasons, I am inclined to support this initiative.
Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The province has told us time and time again that we need to demonstrate our commitment to affordable, supportive, the other kinds of appropriate housing that we require in this city. Knowing that this project is dependent upon the rezoning permitting process as outlined in our agenda package, because this will increase beds, that it does have to go through that rezoning and permitting application process. Because this project will leverage our city funds and that this will include robust community engagement, which we hear will happen early in the new year, and I do look forward to that robust community engagement. I know that Streets Alive has had some challenges in front of the Subdivision Development Appeal Board for some of their projects, so I really look forward to making sure that you do that community engagement. I will at this time support this project. Thank you.
All right. I cannot support this project. I want to applaud the work that Streets Alive does with Genesis and Exodus program that they currently have. The reason I am not supporting this is very similar to that of Councillor Dodick. He says, we've had a resolution put forward here, and I know that we need to have a more robust conversation about that, and there's a plan in place. These things come over the wall, totally understand. But there's $560,000 as it sits now that could be used for other affordable housing, as we'd heard already that this particular project is moving forward. And if we've got till February 24th to 2024 to do that community engagement, that funding, the additional, as we're saying, it's going to take a little bit longer if we don't get this funding. Well, that gives the time to do more work as far as being prepared for this project by Streets Alive. So $560,000 to go to other housing, if it's helping with rent supplements or if it's helping with some other way, I think this is a much better used mechanism to get both of them being done, because we're going to have this already be completed. It's already been said it's going to, but we'll also have over $500,000 as it sits here to help others as well. So this is a win-win in my opinion. So for that reason, I will not be supporting. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Briefly, and I'll say this over and over, that, you know, since I was elected, it's the urgency of supportive housing has been front and center, and this is another indication of the urgent need. We need to move forward. Bottom line. So I'll be supporting the resolution.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the comments of my colleagues, and I think there's merit on both sides. And so I think that shows that you've done your homework and you bring a wealth of an open mind. And I'm trying to keep an open mind to this whole process, and I listen to all sides. But when I've heard from our provincial partners that they're kind of watching us, they want to see what we're doing, and want to see if we put skin in the game. It means a lot, and I think it's important and imperative that we do something to address this issue. As Councillor Crowson said earlier, no matter, even though there's other types of housing needs in our community, if we fulfill this need, it opens up housing in other ways. And I think that's very important. I have to compliment our city manager and his team for doing their due diligence and coming with a solution. And as the mayor said, you know, there's other projects, but right now we have a project in front of us that qualifies. And so all the boxes have been checked. So I have no reason why I can't support this. And so for that reason, I will be supporting this.
With that, we'll have a roll call, Madam City Clerk.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson.
In favor.
Councillor Crowson. Let me move you up.
In favor.
Councillor Dodick. Let's put your mic on.
You can do it. Opposed.
Councillor Palladino.
In favor.
Can you say that again?
Say it again.
No, say it again.
Oh, in favor.
Thank you. Counselor Parker? Counselor Schmidt-Rempel?
In favor.
Thank you. Acting Mayor Middleton Hope?
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Campbell?
In favor.
Thank you. Mayor Higgin?
Opposed.
Thank you. That carries.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, I do have a resolution coming from Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, Affordable and Social Housing Capital Funding Request, Concept of Investment Partners. We've heard similar here before, as well as the funding that is required and such a tight timeline. And so this is why this needs to be forwarded to this afternoon's meeting if there's the appetite to do that. So I'll read the resolution, then open it up for questions. Be it resolved that the Economic Standing Policy Committee recommends that Council provide $1,500,000 of funding to Concept Investment Partners Limited for the affordable housing project located at 1730 10th Avenue South, conditional securement of the balance of the project funding on or before December 31st, 2024, and successful acquisition of a development permit for the project. And number 2, provide the funding subject to the execution of city's third-party contribution agreement in a form with terms and conditions satisfactory to the city manager. And number 3, authorize the city manager and city clerk to sign the agreement. And number 4, forward this report as an item of urgent business to this afternoon's October 3rd, 2023 council meeting due to the tight timelines. Again, there are no presentation, so I would like to first of all ask if there's anybody in the gallery who would like to come up and make a presentation on this matter. For a second time, is there anyone in the gallery who would like to come up and make a presentation on this matter? For a third and final time, or is there anyone in the gallery who would like to come up and make a presentation on this matter? All right, we'll open it up for questions and start off with Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Hagan. A question through you. I'm curious again about the option 2, dollar amount. And I'm trying to open several different slides at once. So maybe I'll ask Mr. Malcolm or his team. This one, the option 2, looks like it's saying $35,000 per unit is around average. And I thought with the previous one, it was $17,500, which is half per unit. So I'm struggling with why we're saying, oh yeah, no, the average is $35,000 per unit for this one, but the last one was only $17,500.
Yeah, so
am I correct in my remembrance?
correct. So the reason that it's different here is because typically the average is pulled from multi-bedroom units. In the case of Streets Alive Mission, it's been treated on a per bedroom basis as opposed to per unit. And the reason it was done that way was because they're on the main floor, a communal setting would maybe count as 1 unit, even though it has 16 bedrooms. And so we've equated it to bedroom instead of to unit because it would be a 16-bedroom unit in that case. Whereas with this one, it is a true number of suites, each of which has a different number of bedrooms, either a bachelor suite, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom suites. And so in this case, we've actually done it by unit as opposed to by bedroom.
Okay, I think I understand the explanation, but I'm going to have to mull that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Dodick.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. This is referred to as affordable housing, but I keep seeing 55 plus mentioned in here. So is it affordable housing for anybody, or is it affordable housing for those 55 and over?
So the applicant has made us aware that their intention is to have it for those that are age 55 and over, and that they would be providing affordable housing under those parameters. Further questions on that, I could pass over to the applicant, though.
Okay. Now, this property is appears to be a private investor. So, does that mean the property taxes would be payable on this project?
I would have to defer that question to somebody from our taxation.
through to members of Economic SPC to Councillor Dodick. I believe that would be the case, but I need to take a look into it.
Okay, in terms of agreements that are to be signed, if this 1.5 million or whatever number may be subject to a Jeff Carlson amendment, does the agreement require the existing owner or the existing applicant to hold on to the property for a period of time, or are they allowed to sell it the day after the project has been built? Or are there conditions like that?
So I can speak at a very high level, and then maybe anything more detailed I'd pass over to our legal services team. But the agreement that was developed for the last investment that came through council through this same funding pot requires 20 years of affordable rates be provided for the units that are designated at the time. So in this case, the units out of the 50 total units, 37 have been identified as being under affordable rates, and we would require that ongoing for a 20-year term. The applicant would be required to report on that annually to us, and if there was at any point in time a move away from that affordability, then repayment options would be enforced through the agreement.
Okay, you say the applicant, but or anyone purchasing subsequently would be bound by that agreement, but not necessarily.
So that one I'd need to maybe pass over to our legal services team, but my understanding is we would be able to address it through the agreement.
I can't answer your question with any degree of certainty. I don't have the template agreement, but certainly in terms of the high level that we've been advised, that was the intention. But if there was further interest on what that agreement says in specifics, we could bring it forward and discuss it, because it's the template that we intend to use for all of such agreements, not just for this applicant, but any applicant.
So to the best of your knowledge, it's the affordability piece of it that would have to be in place, not necessarily the ownership. Or you don't know right now? Could you repeat the question? Okay, so that 37 of the units would have to remain affordable for 25 years. Okay.
That's right.
So I understand that piece, but right now the applicant is a very specific company. So if this specific company chose a year after, should they get funding from both the province and the city to sell it, can they do so?
I don't know. I know we had discussions about whether to encumber the property with a mortgage-like encumbrance, with those kind of guarantees, but I haven't seen the final version of the document, as it wasn't anticipated to be part of this. But happy to bring the document back and get into those details with you, or if council prefers, engage with you one-on-one with that information.
Okay, I guess, but the problem with that is that the decision has to be made today.
That agreement would be signed if they qualify for further information, so yes.
Okay, so the answer, you can't give me the answer today is what you're saying, basically.
I can do my best to give it to you later today by reviewing the document.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Crowson?
Thank you, Mayor Hagan. My question is for the applicant, who I believe is here. Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Oh, sorry, introduce yourself.
I'm Ken Harvey. I'm the managing partner for Concept Investment Partners.
Same question that was asked of the first applicant. Will this project move ahead without municipal funding?
Not in this iteration. So from the March rezoning application until I was here in June, obviously our influence has changed in the building. Obviously with the current interest rate climate as well as the inflation rate climate, it's changed again. And we saw an opportunity to work with the administration to try to bring some affordable housing to a certain segment given the geographical location of the building right across from the hospital. We targeted that 55 plus community, knowing that providers like Green Acres have been saying there's a limited amount of independent living suites in the city in an affordable range. So that was our intent, bringing that forward. It would change if we didn't have the grant funding, because what we're looking at is linking our rents to what is called the MMR, which is the market median rent as prescribed by CMHC. They say a bachelor suite is $880 a month. In our first band, which is part of the affordability units, that unit would rent for $526 per month. So as an independent and for-profit development corporation, that's not in our best interest to our shareholders and our partners, but we're looking to try to provide a solution for some affordable housing in the community.
Okay. You've heard the concern. We're going to look into the document, but what commitment can you make that this will stay affordable throughout the 20 years, et cetera?
I can actually answer the question. We'll certainly let Mr. Lowen do his work. It is registered. It's a charge on title through this program. I don't know if the city of Lethbridge is exactly that, but that's what the AHPP requirement is. So through the Alberta governments for the Affordable Housing Partnership Program. So we would have to have a charge on title for 20 years, providing that we would be linked to that, again, that MMR ratios. And we'd have to provide that not only yearly reporting to the city of Lethbridge, providing we got the grant. We have to provide that to the city of Lethbridge to the province of Alberta. And if we were able to also parlay this into CMHC funding, we'd have to do the exact same reporting to the CMHC on a yearly basis through an audited statement.
And the plan is 50 units, 37, so approximately 75% would be affordable as per city's definition of affordability.
Correct. Yes, 100% of them are affordable as per the Affordable Housing Partnership Program. But yes, 37 would be truly below market rents at a certain percentage.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Hagan.
Thank you. Actually, I'll just keep you up at the mic here for a minute, Mr. Harvey. Thank you very much for those answers. I'm going back to the March rezoning and a question. I think if you watch a video about 3 or 4 times, I'd asked, because I was quite exciting for. I was quite excited for what this was going to become. Some of the questions I had, and were replied with, there was going to be a coffee shop, daycare, a salon, a confectionery, doctor offices, and up to and including kind of a Ronald McDonald House type thing. And when I asked more about the affordable housing thing, and I think your answer was, no, that's not what we want to do. We're looking at this other project. This has been a 180 to what was promised. And I know that even though something is promised, that's fine. You can pivot.
Yeah.
But the question I would have is, you say the interest rates have changed, and I'm talking March till now, change a grand amount prior. Is it this AHCP that is making you want to make this change?
It's not making us, the affordable housing or housing in general is why we asked for mixed use on that original application in March. When we were here in June, the active conversations were with a respite provider. Those have since gone quiet. In fact, they're not interested in the city of Lethbridge. Our conversations with AHS, we've been advised that we would not get an answer from AHS for at least 2 to 3 years for basically doctor, nursing, and administration locum housing. So yeah, we've pivoted for sure, 100%, and that's private industry. We have to try to meet whatever the current need is in the community on whatever parcel of land or building that we have. It wasn't done in any sort of underhanded way. It was not meant to mislead council on why we're looking for the zoning. We'd always asked for that mixed use zoning. This will still be mixed use. We still plan to have half of the first floor as a grocery deli. That is still the plan. And the rest of it would be affordable housing. So we're only using a portion of the building, yes, today for other purposes besides residential living. But to go back to your point, yes, we've pivoted. We've had to pivot. Our first meeting with administration was August the 24th. That's our kickoff meeting to go through this process. So we've had to move very rapidly. Administration's had to move very rapidly as well to try to be here today to hit the very tight timelines from the province in a time where council didn't meet during the summertime.
Okay, so some of the other stuff, okay. Thank you. Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure this to Mr. Harvey or our administration. This project create any new housing? Or is it housing that currently exists?
It's all brand new housing. So previously it was a supportive and assisted seniors facility, which those housing stock, because it's been vacant for so long, there was no need in the community for that existing market product. And so we're actually changing it completely into something that's needed and desired in the community. So I look at it, that's my own personal. Now, administration may have a different, interpretation. But currently today, there's no kitchens in any of the suites. We're going to renovate them, put kitchenettes in every single suite. We're going to add amenities that weren't there before, a fitness facility, some of those things in that building and structure that weren't there before, and take out the big commercial kitchen, of course, because all have their own individual kitchens. So we look at it because of the vacancy of over the last 18 months plus, we're turning it into independent living rather than the congregate living it was before.
I don't know if our admin wanted to weigh in on whether this is creating any new housing stock in the community.
I will just say that this is one of those pieces that we were waiting on a response from the government of Alberta to the very last minute. They do see this as net new affordable housing and meets the definition of their program. So that was a piece that we were questioning ourselves because it was housing. It sat vacant for a period of time. It's now going to be a different form of housing, but going to be open again. The province took some time. They evaluated all the criteria or the facts with this property, and they've indicated that this is in fact net new affordable housing in their mind.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Acting Mayor Middleton Hope.
Thank you. This question is for Mr. Harvey. Mr. Harvey, I'm just looking for some assurances here. I don't profess to know the heartbeat of the city all the time, but I do speak to people. And one of the things that they want to hear, I feel, is that they're getting good value for money and that when we're providing funds to a project like this, they want to see some tangible benefits. So in terms of commingling of funds, and I don't want to mischaracterize it, but in terms of commingling of funds from the City of Lethbridge, the AHPP, and your donations and debt and agency funding and so forth, a part of that, the $1.5 million, can you assure this body that this will be used for renovations rather than purchase? Will it be used to redevelop this? I think you talked in terms of your scope of work and some of the things that you intended to do with this. So if I'm a member of the public and I'm listening to this, I'm not sure that I'm as comfortable with the $1.5 million is to purchase a property for an intended purpose. Rather, it's to renovate this property, to make it more livable, to make it more usable, and so forth. So I ask you, can you clarify that for me?
Absolutely. So we currently own the property. We bought the property in January 2023 of this year.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. The public may not be.
Yeah, for sure. And so timelines basically going through is that as we got to this juncture today, or back in August through September, was that, yes, we identified the needs. We've had a full general contractor scope go through our own funds, looking at what we need to do as far as a purchase to a base level, and then past that. So any of the grants that we get are going directly into the suites and into the structure to allow and facilitate the adaptive reuse of this structure to provide affordable housing for the community.
Could you just take a moment to highlight some of those things that you're going to be doing to the individual suites so that members of the public are aware of it?
Sure. So this building was built in 2003, so there will be some updates to the electrical and mechanical systems, as well as to the life safety systems, access systems to the door, or to the building itself at the doors. And again, like I just mentioned, none of the suites today have any kitchens. They have a kitchenette, so basically a bar, fridge, and a sink.
Right.
So we'll have to be putting in brand new cabinetry, brand new venting for those appliances, as well as, of course, a stove and fridge and your typical appliances that would go into an independent living situation.
Okay. And you're changing the exterior, you're modernizing the exterior as well as a part of this?
We are, yeah, and we're going to be looking at how can we increase the insulation and the building envelope on the structure to make sure that we're using less energy and fuels to heat the building.
Just one last piece, which may be a little bit offside, but I'm going to ask it anyway. In regards to parking, what are your visions for parking around that particular building and for the residents that live there?
Well, currently, I don't think it's a secret. There's not a whole lot of parking on the site, and so that was part of our reasoning to going after the demographic we're going after, because we do have a major transit hub right out in front of us. So, we look at the provincial stats on how many people 55 plus looking affordable housing actually own their own vehicle, and it's very low. So we believe that the majority of the clientele that'll be in that building will not own an automobile. In the 37 units. So I believe that we would have enough to satisfy the parking requirements. We are looking at other alternatives as well.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Councillor Dodick?
Yeah, the question is to administration. I can't remember when we did the rezoning, what we rezoned it to, but in the material, I'm getting the impression that the application is with respect to a project that would be considered likely a permitted use. Is that correct? Waiting for the red. I've still got the red.
I don't have the details in front of me, but I'm actually sending an email to the team to double check. I do believe that is within that, but I will get back to you within a few minutes.
Well, the reason I ask is I'm just assuming that it is, and the reason for that, which means that there is no public hearing, it's just a development officer has to give, as of right, a development permit for this 55-plus application, subject to conditions that the development officer may impose. Is it a permitted use, Mr. Malcolm, do you know?
So I was just going to hop in, if I may, to say that one of the conditions we put in our funding agreement is that a development permit needs to be successfully achieved before targeting our release of funds. And so at this point in time, I believe the belief is that it is a permitted use. However, if that were to change, in order to access the funds, they would have to go through a subsequent rezoning. But that would be a determination of the Planning and Design Office at that time.
Okay. But as far as you know, at this point, it's a permitted use? Yes.
Yes.
Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And just sort of going back to that with the permitted use on this, a permit has to be successfully attained, correct?
That's correct. That's one of the conditions that we've included in the recommendation, that it be subject to the acquisition of a development permit and the balance of the project funding.
Okay, so it is still subject that if there are appeals to that permit, it would go to the Subdivision Development and Appeal Board?
Correct. We want to make sure that development permit is in place before funding is dispersed.
Okay, so there is still that process in place that if it were appealed?
Correct.
Okay. Just further to this then, Mr. Harvey, a couple questions for you. Just because you did have to pivot from the original, I think it was the June 21st public hearing, to now, will there be any further community engagement on your end in that this has changed and we are now looking at some affordable housing units? That kind of thing. Are you going to do any further community engagement to advise the community that there was a change in this?
We hadn't contemplated, but we certainly could. So in our Tea Party, we had talked about that, utilizing, at that point, we were talking about the western half being housing and the eastern half being mixed use from the ground floor to clinics to then the top floor. So we had covered that in our Tea Party. So I don't know if it's, I mean, maybe a pivot overall in the project, but we did discuss at the time. But yeah, we can contemplate having another, neighborhood talk.
And when you covered that then, did you cover affordable housing? Like certainly there is the housing component that you covered, but did you cover it specifically as affordable housing in your Tea Party?
I don't see a distinction between housing and affordable housing. What we're doing is actually trying to find housing that lower income people can actually afford to be at. This is not a supportive housing application. So there's no social aspect to this project. It is, and essentially it's an apartment building in the end is what it is. We're just working through the grant process with administration at the city and the province to try to provide housing that will be below market for those individuals who don't make as much as the counterpart right across the table.
And I guess technically, even through the zoning process that we went through, we can't consider the user, we only consider the zoning. Correct. So that does cover that. Thank you very much, Mr. Harvey. Mr. Pitcher, I do have a question for you again. Can you go back to option 2 and help me again understand how you came to that amount?
Absolutely. Okay, so under option 2, we've listed that City Council may allocate 1.295 million, or an alternative amount is directed by City Council. And so when reviewing the application and the request from Concept Investment Partners, and the rates that they had proposed for their affordability, we had determined that under our definition of affordable at the City of Lethbridge, 37 of the units meet that criteria. And so 37 times the $35,000 per unit equals 1.295 million. And so that's where that figure came from.
Okay, and do you feel, just going back to the previous application then, do you feel that the previous application was being treated fairly in the amount that we allocated to them, and you feel this is a fair treatment of what we're allocating to this particular group as well? So I just want to make sure that we are treating all groups that come to us for these applications fairly, and that I have a concern that we're not. I want to ensure that we are in fact doing the math correctly and treating them fairly.
Yeah, correct. I do feel that we are. The reason that the last one was treated differently was simply because the main floor will be a 16-unit communal living area with 16 rooms, but it's not individual suites and units, and so that's why it was treated by bedroom as opposed to by unit. In this case, they are all true units. They all have their own kitchenette, kitchen within the unit, and there's a mix of, like I mentioned before, bachelor suites, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. So they do fit that mold a little bit better of the previous ones. Under the current for Streets Alive, that's why that distinction was made by bedroom instead of by unit, which still is aligned with the total per bedroom that we would have funded in the past.
Okay, so because we're dealing with communal living units.
Can I say, because one was 17.5, this one is 35, so that's what I can't wrap my head around. Sorry to interject.
No,
That's
sorry,
all right.
I was going there anyway, so thank you.
I may be able to add a little bit of clarity. So as we've looked back at all the projects that we have funded, or at least funded through resolution, they all didn't come to fruition. We look back at the history of rate. We've always looked at a unit, because everything we've dealt with so far has been an apartment unit. So when we were now presented with an application of a different or a more unique situation where there was the 16 bedrooms, but on one floor. So there isn't individual kitchens, there aren't individual washrooms, there's less costs. The simple math was typically a dwelling unit has 2 bedrooms. So let's divide that amount in half, which is why we had 35,000 per unit. If we're looking at it, again, most units have 2 bedrooms. So if we were doing it on a per bed basis on our dwelling unit proposition, that would be 17,500 per bed, which is where we ended up with that kind of comparator for the Streets Alive. We don't have another perfect example of a comparator for the situation where we're looking on a per bed basis, and that was the best calculation we could do, doing our best to present council with an option that is apples to apples, understanding they all have unique aspects to them.
Thank you very much. That helps me out.
Councillor Palladino.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For Mr. Harvey, please. I'm assuming this building is still vacant. Am I wrong?
No, it's vacant. That's correct.
So it is vacant.
That's
okay.
correct.
If approved and renovations take place, how long can we expect, or can you expect, residents in there?
We believe in spring 2024.
Spring?
So, yeah, we're targeting for February to March.
Okay, and these are all 1-bedroom, right?
No, they're a mix of bachelor, 1-bedroom. We'll have some new junior 2-bedrooms, which is basically 1-bedroom plus den, and 2-bedroom units.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it is now, in the attempt at clarity, has now muddied the water for me even more. And I'm sorry, Mr. Malcolm, again. So we're basing the $35,000 per unit on 2 beds per unit. I just heard that these are not all 2-bedroom units. So
No, say is we typically, not always, there's lots of 1-bedroom units, but when we look at all the units that we've historically funded, I would say that 2 bedrooms is the average. So at $35,000 per dwelling unit, we're going to make an assumption that that's a average of 2 bedrooms per unit. Our best guess at giving a per bed calculation was to make that division by 2, which is where we ended up at 17,500. We had no other easy way to give a dollar value per bed, which was the situation that Streets Alive presented to us. So it is we didn't feel like giving 35,000 per bed. So this is our best attempt at kind of understanding. Now, if this is approved, we have another variable to add into our new standard of making it as equitable as possible. This is an example, though, of something that deviates from the capital grant that was put on hold, is we had no set expectation, whereas we have looked at other similar capital grants from other municipalities where they've actually put a dollar per door or dollar per bed count in, and that is something that we are currently looking into as part of our revisions to that capital grant, because we believe that council and the community would be better served by some level of standard amount as opposed to it always being open. So it is something that is in process.
Okay, thank you. So maybe you can help me a little further. It's been determined that 37 of the units will be affordable.
Under our City of Lethbridge definition, yes.
Thank you. In those 37 units, how many beds do we get? And I'm asking you so you can do the math rather than me.
Our staff or the applicant to see how quick we can do math. I know we have a spreadsheet of all the bedrooms, but
I saw the spreadsheet. That's why I asked you to do the math.
just as we're calculating that up, I'll just add a comment that it's really hard to find exact comparables because we are seeing applications for new builds, we're seeing applications for renovations. We could, in theory, see renovations of hotels as a proposed renovations of derelict buildings. The costs are probably all over the spectrum. It's just our best information today is to try to give some level of comparable for equivalency.
Just to answer your questions with some really quick counting here. So treating bachelor suites as 1-bedroom units and treating junior 2-bed, so that's the bed plus den, as 2 bedrooms, there'd be a total of 44 bedrooms in this project.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Got no further questions, so we will move on to debate. So Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, open debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Again, as before, the province has asked us to commit to affordable, supportive, appropriate housing projects in our community, and that this is seen by the province as net new affordable housing. So this does add and open up affordable housing units within our community. There's an opportunity that this will, once we open this up, open up housing in other areas of our community. So we do see a ripple domino effect. When we open up more housing in other areas of our community, people move in and they can take up those other housing units. This project is subject to the development permitting process, which does subject it to appeal by the community if there are concerns through the Subdivision Development and Appeal Board. And again, this does leverage city funds. And for those reasons, I will ask for council's support on this.
Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a pitch for an amendment, and I hate to always be the Scrooge that comes in and and tries to whittle everyone down, but in fairness, I'm the chair of one of the organizations that applied for this grant, and as the chair for that, I told our board, our executive director, to come for the full ask, and then sitting around this table, I cut them down by 2/3. So I'm in the interest of equity and fairness, and my math, Mr. Malcolm can probably, or Mr. Pritchard can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but at 44 beds, doing the same equity that we did on the previous one, I've come up with $770,000 of our investment. And that's the amendment I'll put on the table and see if I have any support for that.
Is that looking for a friendly from acting mayor, or sorry, from Councillor Schmidt-Rempel? Councillor Schmidt-Rempel?
I want to confirm the math on that with Mr. Malcolm. That math is correct? Okay. To be fair, Councillor Carlson and I were sidebarring on this to ensure the fairness of the applicants, so I will accept that as a friendly.
So that number is 770K, okay? Instead of 1.5 million, okay? Yeah. All right. With that, more debate, Councillor Middleton Hope.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. I won't be in favor of the reduction. I am in favor of the 1.5. Yeah, I agree with that. We're in debate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not a problem. Therefore, I can't support the $770,000 request of this motion. I am in favor of the 1.5. So although we've gone forward with this, I'll be looking to, if this is accepted, then we move forward. If it's not, then I will ask to bring that back.
You can make the amendment still if you wanted, or you want to go through, okay. Councillor Campbell.
I'm going along with what Councillor Middleton Hope said. I agree with that.
All right, that was just verbiage then. All right, okay. Okay, with that, I see no one else in the queue, so to close, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
I will call for the vote on the amended motion.
And we'll do that by roll call. Madam City Clerk?
Thank you. Councillor Crowson.
Opposed.
Councillor Dodick.
Favor.
Councillor Palladino.
Opposed.
Councillor Parker. In favor. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
In favor.
Acting Mayor Middleton Hope.
Opposed. Nope. Yep, opposed.
Deputy Mayor Campbell.
Opposed.
And Mayor Higgin.
Opposed.
And Councillor Carlson.
In favor.
Looks like it's 4-5, so that's lost.
All right. With that, a motion arising from, I take it? Okay.
And I'll bring back the same motion then with the original amount.
Well, it's him now that's on it,
Okay.
Councillor, or Acting Mayor Middleton Hope. For 1.5. So the original resolution is now yours, as you're bringing it back?
Yes, I will bring back the original motion. Thank you.
All right. With that, I see there's no debate. Oh, Councillor Dodick?
I'd like to propose an amendment to the original motion to be in fairness with Streets Alive at the very least. We did option 2 with them. In this case, option 2 would be $1,295,000. So if we're going to treat everyone exactly the same thing based on, what happened just prior, and this actually points out the difficulty about the comprehensive review that we haven't received with, which Mr. Malcolm said was going to be one of the things discussed. But be that as it may, I would ask Councillor Middleton Hope, in fairness, to treat this as a friendly amendment, and bearing in mind that it's very close to the original ask.
So the ask is
1,295,000.
1,295.
Option 2, the same sort of numbers that we used with respect to the Streets Alive.
Yes.
Yes. As long as the proponent can live with it, I think we can live with it. So yes, I'm prepared to accept the friendly amendment.
Councillor Croson?
I'm in for debate on the whole thing eventually.
All right, so we are starting with open to debate. So Councillor, or Acting Mayor Middleton Hope, to start.
I agree with Councillor Dodek's comments. There's an application of fairness here. I recognize what he's saying. I can certainly live with this. I think it is more than simply going down to the half of what we had proposed. And I think Mr. Harvey is going to be able to work with that. I sincerely hope so. So I ask for my council's support.
Councillor Croson?
Thank you. I will be supporting this. It wasn't as easy for me as the first one because this is a for-profit organization and giving city tax money to a private company always makes me a little worried. But I take some hope in the 20 years commitment to affordability that will be built into this. We need 50 more units. This is an empty building that can be, relatively quickly converted into housing. We know we have a large number of seniors. As I said earlier, any type of housing supports all of housing because it gets us more housing stock overall. And until you guys let me have my own city corporation that does all of the housing in Lethbridge, I will have to take what I can and work with all the partners in Lethbridge. So unless you just want to build me a corporation, I will absolutely support this at this time.
With that, time back to Acting Mayor to close.
I'll simply call a question.
By roll call, Madam City Clerk.
Thank you. Oh, he's, okay. Councillor Dodek. Yeah,
Actually,
why
no,
don't we just, let's do
all in
that.
favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. Yeah. With that, we are adjourned to our council meeting in 30, yeah. All right.